Hello everyone. In this video I want to show a little tip that I just found to be pretty useful once your project gets at a certain size. I think it can easily prove to be a good thing to implement. So what I have here is just a normal third-person example map, and if we open up the animation blueprint for this, I forget where it is. Here it is. And switch to the event graph. We can see that it's already running this stuff here. And if we expand this one up, we can see there's an instance of the character running. So basically this means that the event update animation is constantly running inside the animation blueprint. And while this is probably going to be okay in most situations, you might have situations where you have so much stuff going on inside the update animation, which eventually may cause the editor to begin lagging. So right now we can just run around. This is just the standard behavior. And sometimes I actually see myself when I compile different versions is C1, 0 or 1 to C1, and sometimes this for some reason turns to be I get several of these, and that means that they will actually all of them be running inside here. I haven't honestly found a way to avoid that, and I haven't found a reason why I sometimes get several of these. Even though I only have one. If we just move this one up here, so I usually keep it. Even though I only have one mesh with one reference to the animation blueprint. So anyway, a good way to, I would call this a workaround, is to go to the example map. Make sure you click your character here and go to the blueprints and open up the level blueprint. This is going to bring this guy up here. So what I do here is basically just to persist the character once the level starts. So on begin play, and I right click, and because I have my reference, my character selected, I can click this create a reference to a third person character. So this reference is actually not the blueprint itself, but it's an instance of the blueprint, the one I have selected. So if I select nothing or just the floor and right click in here, I get a reference to the floor. So that's a way to get a reference to that. So once I have that, I can get the control, this one, and from that one I can say persist. Okay. I have no idea what this is, so let's compile that. And inside my third-person character blueprint, we have this basic movement stuff, input, and so on. And just find a good place and type persist. And from this one, I would, I usually, when I make a project actually, so let's just go ahead and do that. I type in the mesh, get the mesh here, and get an instance. And usually when I do these proof of concept projects, which I guess you will also be doing, I just work with one particular animation blueprint. So I just cast this as an animation third person, this NMBP thing here, right? So I just connect this one up, and that's going to return this. So once we have that, I can right click this and collapse to a macro, and that's going to create this one. And I actually forgot something, but doesn't matter. So I'm going to call this get instance, and let's open that up. And from the output, we want to for the output make sure we have an exec and call this I think then means this is gonna be blank, and I'm gonna make, actually we can do this another way. We can just drag this one to the border somewhere, and it's gonna add pin to node. And we can call this maybe something a little bit shorter, third person and BP or something. And connect that one up. There we go. Okay, so that means that we can easily, if we need a quick access to our animation blueprint, we can just drag this macro in. Okay, and anyway, from here on, we want to go to the third person MVP and create a variable here. Let's call this is possessed, and let's go ahead and in between the update animation blueprint and is valid and whatever stuff you will have here. So usually probably you will have something like a sequence here because you will have several stuff going on, and this is where all your rest of the stuff is gonna go. But in between this, because you don't want to have all this stuff running inside the editor, you can add a little branch here, and you can drag in the is possessed here. So that means that this is only going to be running if you are possessed. So the animation character the character represent with this animation blueprint is possessed. So well, it's just a way of avoiding to get code run unnecessary inside the editor. So set is possessed to be true. So we are back inside the third person character, and similarly you can type event unpossessed and just copy this and connect that up and say we're not possessed. So if you compile, okay, it's gonna throw a warning. Might have to compile this first and then compile this one. Okay, there we go. So that means, as we saw before, the animation blueprint was running. So it's going to run to this point here, and all this is going to be ignored. So if you have all kinds of traces, which I happen to have in one of my projects, which ended up totally crippling the editor for some reason. This is, you can see actually now I have 2 of these. I have no idea why that happens. It's really weird, I think. If somebody watching this can explain that, please let me know by commenting on the video. Otherwise, well, this is a good way to get this to constantly perform inside the editor without yeah, crippling it. So I hope this was useful, and yeah, as mentioned, if you found a reason why we sometimes get several of these, maybe it has something to do with this macro, I don't know. I wouldn't really think so, but anyway, if you'd happen to know, please let me know. So anyway, thank you for watching and hope it was useful. Bye bye.